Good evening. How's everybody doing? Welcome to another uh, Southern Baller Show. I am Jared O. Green. I have here um, my friend. Uh, my he knows more than football than I could even dream of. Coach 67 Sports TV. How you doing, brother?
I'm blessed and highly favored. What's good, bro?
Same here, man. I can't complain. Even if I did, nobody would listen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow, had a little drama going on. We gonna touch that regard to the coaches. We definitely gonna touch on that later on in the show. But we're gonna, as usually, we're gonna touch on some what happened in little SWAC football, MEAC, also the Power Five schools, and what happened in the NFL. So I just want to start off with the standings. Uh, Alcorn State is leading the SWAC West with being 3-2. Prairie View A&M is 3-3. Coach's Southern University Jaguars is 3-2. They're third in the SWAC West. Texas Southern is 2-4. Arkansas Pine Bluff is 2-4, and Grambling State is a surprising 1-5. In the SWAC East, Jackson State is, of course, is undefeated, 5-0. Florida A&M is right behind them, 4-2. Alabama A&M is 2-4. Bethune-Cookman is 1-4. Alabama State is 3-3, and unfortunately, those Delta Devils are 0-6. And we're gonna touch on the MEAC. In the MEAC, I must say the MEAC. This must be a mistake. Norfolk State, they have Norfolk State. Oh, because they're 1-0 in the conference.
Yeah.
So they're 1-5, but they're on the top of the conference because they beat a conference team. But they're 1-5. North Carolina Central is 4-1, but they haven't played a conference school yet. But their conference play is about to start. Delaware State is 3-2. Howard is 1-4. South Carolina State is 1-4. Morgan State is 2-3. So North Carolina State, on down, has not played a conference game yet, except for Norfolk State.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, bro. First of all, I'm sorry before we get started. Salute to the amazing LDBC, the Lions Den Boston community. Uh, Peace and blessings to everybody in the chat, anybody sending super chats, whatever the case may be. The standings you gave for the SWAC, those are like overall records. Uh, the reason I'm saying that is because uh, uh, Prairie View, they only lost one SWAC game to Southern.
Right.
So if we going strictly by SWAC standings, if we going by overall standings, they might not be first, but I think if we going strictly by SWAC standings, they should be leading the SWAC West, if I'm not mistaken, because they lost to Southern was the only SWAC loss.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's not your fault, but some of these standings, like maybe unless you're looking like at the Sheraton poll, certain polls that standings that deal specifically in SWAC play, all I'm gonna have it listing by who's number one. Well, it's easy on the east side because Jackson State is undefeated; they haven't lost any games. But Prairie View, the only SWAC loss is the Southern. Now they've had years in the SWAC where, excuse me, they only count like if you on the west side, they only count your west wins and losses towards your overall SWAC total, and then other years they just count all SWAC games. So I don't know if that's the case now, but in terms of just SWAC wins and losses on the SWAC west side of things, Prairie View only has one SWAC loss to Southern, and that's it. So they should be at the top of those standards in terms of SWAC overall record.
So you're saying basically these standings that we find on the website, NCAA website, or even if we just Googling to go to the standings, excuse me, that basically they're not really set up by the people who officially eat the SWAC.
Yeah, in most instances, well, like I said, the reason I'm saying that in terms of the overall record, you're correct. That's the overall record. But in terms of like SWAC, for example, Southern, I think they're 2-2 in SWAC, but Purview is 3-1 overall. Not overall record, but in terms of SWAC record, because they only lost to Southern. They beat Grambling, they beat other SWAC teams. So this weekend was their first SWAC loss. So if we just going by SWAC standings, they should be number one on the west side, whereas Jackson State number one on the east side, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
the overall record is correct, but in terms of where they stand in that in the SWAC, like I said, maybe like the Sheraton poll, uh, that was the poll, my dad, may he rest in peace, that
rest
we
in
all
peace.
went to because it was always like, hey, these are the top teams in the SWAC and MEAC, and in terms of like one AA FCS standings, it kind of gave you the best. I mean, there were years where, for the most part, unless it was Southern or Grambling, the best team from the SWAC, they wouldn't even play in a celebration bowl. Well, it was the Heritage Bowl back then. Those two teams might go to the Heritage Bowl, not a Celebration Bowl, but a lot of teams will go to the one AA playoffs. And usually, like the highest ranked team in the SWAC and the highest ranked team in the MEAC, in many instances, those two teams would elect to go to the one AA playoffs or the SCS playoffs now, as opposed to playing in the Heritage Bowl, which is the Celebration Bowl now. But
Hey,
uh-huh.
I like this. Picasso put in the chat. Southwestern African College is the SWAC.
Yeah. Southwestern African Conference. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
But thank you for straightening that out. Also, I want to say North Carolina A&T, they had a bye week this past Saturday. So they're 2-3 and they're 1-0 in their conference, even though they're not in SWAC or MEAC anymore. Hampton fell to 3-2. They're 0-2 in their conference, and Tennessee State moved to 1-4. It has yet to play a Ohio Valley Conference game.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be truthful. I mean, me personally, I think it'll greatly help the MEAC if they had, North Carolina, A&T, and Tennessee State. I think those teams would strengthen the conference.
Me too. I don't know why the higher ups in North Carolina A&T, Tennessee State decided to move away from the HBCU conferences. Um, they were birthed out of. I don't know. Um, they're talented. Don't get me wrong. North Carolina A&T. I was watching a couple of weeks ago them play North Dakota State, and there was a couple of drives where they looked like they belonged in the same field. But as we know, that depth, even though they're
Yeah.
the FCS school, North Dakota State is built to
Yeah,
run.
they I don't mean to cut you off, but they really
Go ahead.
they're FBS caliber school. They
Yes,
really
sir.
could
Thank you.
they really could jump up to FBS and without missing a beat. And I mean the thing about it is, they might be labeled as SCS, but in terms of the way the program is run and the amount of support and the funding and those type of things, they really are FBS school.
Yeah, they're like schools like you remember Appalachian State. They're no
Appalachian State,
they're in
Marshall,
Sunbelt now.
yeah, and
Um,
Marshall, one of those type of teams back in the day also.
Georgia Southern, they were
Yeah, yeah.
terrorizing the FCS with that Paul Johnson option and flex bone offense. Um, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
Like I
teams like that, sooner or later, they had to move up to the FBS. Go
like
ahead.
and like I said, even Marshall was one of those. They FBS now, but back in the day they were FCS, and they were like winning one AA championships, like one of the top teams in one AA every year. So they were another team that gradually, eventually moved up.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't James Madison move up?
If I'm not mistaken, I think they did. I really don't recall, you know, but they were like one of those teams, that were perennial powers.
Uh, yes, they did. They in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They, like I said, they were perennial powers. And, just to kind of jump back to North Carolina A&T and Tennessee State, I mean, even FAMU at one point, FAMU moved out briefly. They moved out of MEAC, but that was a bad move. North Carolina
Yeah.
A&T they had a stranglehold on the MEAC because those 2 years where Alcorn State was pretty much dominating the SWAC, and that was like one of the long teams Southern couldn't get over the hump against. Alcorn State kept winning the SWAC, but yet when they get to the Celebration Bowl, they couldn't beat North Carolina A&T. So I don't understand why would they move away from the MEAC and even Tennessee State. They were years back. You know, Tennessee State was a real good team in MEAC, and the crazy thing about it, they used to play a lot on BET in those days, and I don't know how it was like in a MEAC people on the West Coast that follow HBCU football.
Hmm.
In those days, Tennessee State had like a rep for being like a real dirty type team in terms of like late hits and low blows and that
Oh,
type
they
of
were
thing.
they were recruiting from the hood.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but
yes,
but
sir.
but even with that being said, I'm like, look, they were having like that type of success. Like, why just move out of MEAC and it's been years and they haven't looked back. So that's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, they thought they were big and bad enough to um compete with the the Power Five SEX schools, or I should call not Power Five, but um
FCS,
FCS powerhouse FCS schools in their
yeah,
conferences, and they I think they need to put um more manpower or something in their recruiting because they have talent. They recruit. Don't get me wrong. They recruit talent. They get those ballers on the first string, but what like you were saying, what North Dakota State does, um, what James Madison did, Appalachian State did, they made sure they second, third, and even fourth string, if that first string, that 4 star, that 3 star, they took away from uh, the Power Five schools, um, they made sure the people they recruited behind them were strong enough to compete if that first string
yeah. I mean,
went
I,
down.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and you're very accurate in what you're saying, bro. But the point I'm trying to make is, fam, you came to their senses. They was like, all right, hey, we need to either go back to the MEAC or join the SWAC or whatever, whatever. They came to their senses. I mean, Tennessee State has been gone from the MEAC for a while now. At some point, you need to be like, hey, if we can't do anything better than this, we need to, go back to the MEAC.
Yeah, I think we making the same point. I'm just saying, as far as the talent, it's just that, like, Tennessee State is not there yet. They had years
Yeah,
where,
no, no,
go ahead.
we basically saying the same thing, correct?
Yeah,
We
we
just
are.
kind of
We are.
phrasing it differently.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
I said, but yeah, but my point is, the point that my underlying point was, fam, you came to the realization like, hey, we we big in Tallahassee, this, that, and the third. We have a big name and a big brand. A lot of these
Right.
like HBCU schools, like Grambling, like Southern, like FAMU, like they have big followings and big brands, but it's still different when you're trying to compete against, super LCS schools or even Power Five schools. So the point I'm trying to make is, fam, you came to their senses. I don't see why Tennessee State didn't. That's my point.
Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. I don't know what like there. Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at their record. And North Carolina A&T, they're
Yeah.
surviving, but once they get into that Ohio Valley play, um, it might get a little ugly. excuse me, whatever,
And, and,
the southern, the southern whatever, I forgot what conference they're in, but once they get in the conference play, it might get a little ugly.
and that's been one of the knocks on the SWAC over the years. If you take like the top team out of SWAC, even the top team out of MEAC, you know, maybe like around at best, maybe around in the one double E playoffs or the FCS playoffs, they might do good, or they might do good like out of conference, uh, and out of conference play. But collectively, is an entire conference. The SWAC has been synonymous for like being real top heavy and not having a lot of parity. Even a MEAC too, because I remember years where Southern would win the SWAC and they would play. I don't know if you know the Southern Conference with Nicholls State, Northwestern State, McNeese State. They'll
Yeah,
play against some of these non-conference schools, and like they would lose to like bottom feeder type teams. In fact, one year Southern was ranked number one in the Sheraton poll, and they pretty much beat all the SWAC teams. In fact, they even beat the Southern Conference team in Northwestern, but they lost to Nicholls State, and that was Nicholls State only win the whole year. So instead of Southern winning the Black National Championship outright, I think they had a share of the title with like either Howard, I think it was Howard or Hampton, one of the two. So the knock on the SWAC and the MEAC over the years has been like they've been top heavy conferences and they don't have as much depth throughout the entire conference. So
I'm
I mean,
glad you said
it's
that.
kind of the same. Yeah, it's kind of the same argument that people make for the reason why the SEC might in Power Five, the SEC might be stronger than maybe like the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or one of those other conferences because of the depth of the SEC, and especially once you add in like Oklahoma and Texas, that's gonna make it even stronger. So it's the same argument going the opposite way in terms of the SWAC and the MEAC.
I agree, and then you touched on something we're going to touch on at the end, going at the end of the show. Um, so I'm just glad, I'm just eager to get to the end of the show because that foolishness that happened this past weekend, I can't wait to touch on it, man. Uh, Coach, who impressed you in the what player impressed you in the swag or the MEAC this weekend?
Honestly, I had to take a little bit of my own medicine. My friend, Mr. Bashawn McCray. I mean,
Uh oh.
I'm not willing to say he's the next Eric Randall, like he's the next Quincy Richard, he's the next Bryant Lee, Austin Howard, or whatever, like prominent Southern QBs that's on like my pantheon of Southern University quarterbacks from the P. Richardson era to now. I'm not willing to put him that high yet, but the fact that he played well and he led Southern to like a huge swag road win, he's kind of like my standout guy because if I'm a bash him when he plays horribly, on the flip side of it, I have to give him his flowers. So hopefully he can keep that momentum going into this coming weekend against Alcorn State. It's a big home game. This game it has a lot of bearing on who's where they need to be in the SWAC West. It's a big game, so I got to give my friend Bashawn McCray some kudos and some props and some credit. If I'm a bash you, when you're not doing well, I got to give you flowers when you're doing well. So Bashawn McCray.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, but Sean McCray did ball. Um, helping your he did more than help your Southern Jaguars win the game. Uh, I I a lot for the SWAC. A lot of people. Of course, he won the newcomer. But Sean McCray won the newcomer of the week. A shout out for the SWAC. But a lot of people gave offensive player of the week for Jackson State, as he know. But I gotta give a shout out on the defensive side of the ball. Isaiah Major balled out. Florida A&M's Isaiah Major balled out. He was all over the field.
Yeah, yeah. Cause
So
I don't mean to cut you off. I did see some
go
of
ahead.
that, and my thing is, man, hey, some of these guys they're gonna need to have for somebody to eventually knock off J State in SWAC play. Somebody gonna need to bring that type of performance against J State, and too bad somebody either him or somebody else that plays on FAMU team. Too bad they couldn't have had that kind of performance when they played against J State. Because somebody gonna need the ball out to beat J State. Not just you're gonna have to have a collective team effort, but somebody individually is gonna have to ball out when they play J State for somebody to knock J State off. You know, I still I still think they could kind of slip up and lose focus and lose a game. It could have easily been his Alabama State this past week, but the point I'm trying to make is somebody gonna have to ball out individually against J State, and a team gonna have to ball out collectively as a whole. To eventually knock them off in SWAC play.
Yeah, Florida A&M. It's possible if Florida A&M on the defense side of the ball, um, if they play again in the SWAC championship, it could be possible. I can see that Rattlers defense giving Jackson State problems. Uh,
Now,
uh,
I don't know because the East, whoever wins the East and whoever wins the West go head to head. So it wouldn't be possible for J State and FAMU to play because they're on the same side. They both in the
that's
East.
right. That's right. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, disregard what I'm saying. I forgot they're in the same uh
Side, yeah.
well, there's an East and West. So Jackson State,
East and West.
they're yeah,
Jackson Jackson State is on the East. FAMU, most of those Alabama teams, and on the West side you have Southern, Prairie View, Grambling. You have all those teams on the East. I mean, it's kind of mixed up with some of the Mississippi teams, they could be in the West, but the fact that you added FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, they on the East. So some of those teams that were on the East, they're on the West. I mean, I don't know if they still sell those SWAC shirts, but when I was a kid, you go to SWAC game, they would have a SWAC shirt and they would have a SWAC hat, and they have literally all the SWAC teams listed on it. And then as I got older, because when they actually started playing SWAC championship game, and then arguably game was in '99, Southern and J State played each other in the championship game, and Southern won. But at one point when they went to East and West, you could buy the same SWAC shirt, and they would have all the East schools, like all the Mississippi schools, all the Alabama schools. Most of it was on the East with J State, and then all the Texas schools and the Louisiana schools on the West. So you would have, Grambling, Southern, Prairie View, Texas Southern. All those teams was on the West side. So I don't know if they still sell those swag hats and shirts, but they have it broken down. I think since they added Bethune Cookman and FAMU, I think those shirts are kind of scarce at this point. So if anybody could get one of those hats or shirts together, I'm sure it'd be it'll sell like hotcakes because that was really like the one of the big ticket selling items when I used to go to Southern games like in like the mid to late '90s.
some them swag, them old school swag shirts, huh?
Old school swag shirts and hats. They used to sell like hotcakes.
Man, but like Coach said, and thank you for correcting me, Coach. So Florida A&M had their chance to put a dent in Jackson State. I think it was the second game of the season, and they fell
Yeah,
short.
and
So
yeah, it might have been another thing too. The fact that they caught them early in the year, it might have been in J State's favor.
yes, yes, sir, definitely because they just came out a valiant effort going against my North Carolina Tar Heels. But we like again we was too deep. We definitely wasn't deep in the secondary because FAMU quarterback
Yeah,
was tearing us up.
yeah. When you have a Power Five type team, and you're a SWAC or MEAC school going against that, you gotta play mistake free football, and everybody has to come and play.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's definitely a difference in talents, I want to go over the scores real fast. Um, Norfolk State beat Morgan State 24-21. So that's why Norfolk State is number one in the MEAC because that was out of all the MEAC, that was the first conference play. But I can bet you by my bottom dollar that's going to change when the other team's going to go into conference play. Maine outlasted Hampton 31-24. Damn good game. Florida A&M versus South Carolina State. Florida A&M came out on top, 2014. Alabama A&M uh, beat Grambling in a good game. Went to two overtimes, coach. 37-31.
I watched that game.
Texas.
I watched it.
I, I was watching Jackson State, so I didn't catch it. But everybody said it was good. Texas Southern
And it was
outlasted Arkansas Pine Bluff 24-17. Jackson State outlasted Alabama State 26-12. Coach's Southern Jaguars beat Prairie View A&M 45-13. His dog walked them. Tennessee State beat Bethune-Cookman 41-17. And Alcorn State showed who's the better team in the SIP 37 against those Delta Devils. And those were the HBCU scores, the main HBCUs. Any feedback on that, Coach?
say that again, bro.
Any feedback on that? Or
Well,
basically on
you
the
know,
scores?
some of those yeah, some of those scores, were interesting. You know, the way Texas Southern handled Southern, and the way Pine Bluff handled, I mean, it's way Southern Pine Bluff. Those scores, you would think that Texas Southern would have beat Pine Bluff like 56 to 3 or something like that. But it goes to show you that, week in and week out, I might play Grambling and have an off week, and I might play Prairie View and I might ball out, or I might play them close. So it kind of goes to show you that in some instances in conference play, one game doesn't have, meaning or bearing on another game. You can see that, all throughout Power Five football, especially like in the SEC, where you can have a team that might lose to one team, and then a team that beat that team, you might beat them, or so on and so forth. It's kind of like, in boxing where they say styles make fights. It's not
Right.
necessarily a style make fight thing when it comes to college football. It's just, hey, maybe it's my week and you have an off week, or vice versa. Maybe you just have my number, or vice versa. So it's not necessarily styles make fights type of thing. It's just the fact that, hey, I might be ready that one week and you might have an off week. So,
Yeah.
I don't mean another subject, but that's the reason why I was saying, in terms of State. I mean, clearly they're head and shoulders above everybody else, but all it takes is just that one off week. They still can win a SWAC, but it's hard to go like undefeated and just stay focused week in and week in and week in and week out. And when just go undefeated, it's very hard.
Yeah. You're definitely right, especially in the SWAT. Uh, we're gonna move on to Power Five schools. Uh, Georgia 6-0. the number one in the country. Ohio State is 6-0. They 6-0 as well. Alabama is 6-0. Clemson is 6-0. Michigan is 6-0. They're number five. Number six is Tennessee, 5-0. Number seven is Southern California, USC Trojans. They're 6-0 as well. Number eight is Oklahoma State. They're 5-0. Number nine in the country is Ole Miss. Them Ole Miss Rebels are 6-0. Penn State is 5-0. They're number 10 in the country. Those UCLA Bruins, they're number 11. They're 6-0. Oregon is number 12 in the country. They're 5-1. Those TCU Horned Frogs, they're number 13. They're 5-0. Wake Forest is number 14 in the country. They're 5-1. North Carolina Central is number 15. They're 5-1. Mississippi State Bulldogs, they're number 16 in the country. They're 5-1. The Kansas State Wildcats, they're number 17 in the country. They're 5-1. The Syracuse Orange, they're number 18 in the country. They're 5-0. The Kansas Jayhawks are number 19. They're 5-1. The Utah Utes, they're number 20. They're 4-2. Texas is 22 in the country. They're 4-2. Kentucky is I think they're fighting for the 22nd spot, but I'm gonna say they're 25th. No, yeah, they're 23rd technically. They're 4-2. Kentucky is. Illinois is number 24. They're 5-1. And lastly, they're not ranked yet, but they got them as 25 at 5 and James Madison Dukes at 5-0.
Wow.
And of course, this may change. And so, how I want to say, who impressed you?
Man, the way Tennessee put a beat down on LSU.
Woo!
Oh my god. Man, hey. I mean, I knew when the season started that I really couldn't look too much into, you know, Southern going to Tiger Land and Tiger Stadium and playing LSU at Death Valley. I know I really couldn't read too much into that game for either team. But the way LSU got going and they got rolling, I'm like, wow, maybe LSU is better than I thought initially thought they were, especially the way they lost the first week against Florida State. But the way Tennessee put a beat down on LSU, they for real. And it's gonna be interesting to see how do they match up with Alabama this coming week. And I mean, that's gonna be a
That's gonna be
huge
interesting.
game with huge implications. Yeah, whoever wins that game, they're probably gonna be the number one team in the country.
Hmm.
So,
Because
and and
Alabama,
speaking, and
yeah.
I don't mean to cut you
Go ahead.
off. And speaking on Alabama, you know, I don't know if our Heisman Trophy winning friend if he's gonna be back, but that Milrow kid, oh he a baller. I mean, don't get me
Yes,
wrong, he's an athlete more than anything. Uh, but I still think even with him, I still think they could hold it down. I'm not saying, you know, they're gonna win for certain, even if he plays. But I think even with him, they have a fighting chance.
I agree because they barely I think he managed the game against Texas A&M pretty good. Uh, but
Okay.
Texas A&M ain't the same beast as Tennessee in my opinion. I don't know. We'll see.
Not at all.
But there was some blowouts. Georgia beating the brakes off of Auburn 42-10. Ohio State beat the brakes off of Michigan State 49-20. Um, Michigan sunning the Indiana Hoosiers 31-10. Clemson beat the brakes in the ACC matchup off of Boston College 31-3. Um, USC little boy Washington State 30-14. Uh, Texas State barely got out of no, they excuse me. Oklahoma State barely got out of a skirmish with Texas Tech, but they outlasted Texas Tech 41-31. Tennessee State, the game that Coach was just talking about, beat LSU 40-13. We were all shocked by that. Thought the game would be more competitive than that. Old Miss Rebels, out just outbenched Vanderbilt 52-28. Showed them who had a deeper bench. UCLA beats Utah 42-32. Oregon beats Arizona 49-22. South Carolina gets out of a skirmish against Kentucky 24-14. North Carolina Central barely wins against Florida State 19-17. Wake Forest beats Army 45-10. That option and that flex bone didn't work against that Wake Forest defense. Uh, Notre Dame beats BYU 28-20. Uh, TCU barely wins against Kansas Jayhawks 38-31. Kansas beat Kansas State beats Iowa State 10-9. And of course, Mississippi State beats Arkansas 40-17. I thought it was going to be more competitive than that. And there's a lot of games here, and I'm going to spare you guys time. But there's a lot of, and oh yeah, Texas blows out Oklahoma 49-0. So that Red River matchup wasn't much competitive this year at all.
They ripped shootout, yeah. That was a surprise.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So there was some good action this past weekend. Who out of all the games I mentioned, who impressed you out of everybody?
Like I said, I mean, the Tennessee beatdown was impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong. Coming into the game, uh, we knew that Tennessee, it could be a trap game for them because they could look past LSU and look to Alabama and Alabama looking towards see, but to go to Death Valley and man the LSU. I mean, coach. I mean, all my coaches friends. One of my friends was like, "Coach." He was like, "Coach, you seen this game?" And I'm like, "Coach, there's no way. There's no way it was what I thought." I mean, don't get me wrong. I anticipated Tennessee winning, but I did not anticipate Tennessee just manhandling LSU the way they did. And there were times where Jaden Daniels, he really, he certain points he didn't have time to breathe. So it was like it was impressive. I mean, and on the offensive side, it was real balanced. You know what I'm saying? They were able to run the ball the way they wanted. They could pass the ball. I was just thoroughly impressed. And like I said, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see what Tennessee can do you know, against Alabama. And for years I've asked, like, what did Phil Fulmer have at Tennessee for him to be, a national power year in and year out and year in and year out, and for them to go through all of these coaches, and for nobody to even come close to having the same kind of success that Philip Fulmer had when he was at Tennessee all those years, and for them to kind of be back to where they were, not when he was at his height, but just when he was the last time he was there is the last time they having the success that they have now. For them to be back at that point, it's kind of interesting, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see if they could overtake Alabama as being like, the top dog in the SEC. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know Georgia won national championship, but I'm saying like year in and year out, be in the SEC is Alabama, and if they could overcome that hurdle and that obstacle this coming weekend, that line is going to be interesting to see. And the crazy thing about it is they have to see both Alabama and Georgia, so it's going to be interesting.
It definitely will. Definitely will. That's why we all was anticipating this football season. Can't can you believe we almost in the middle of football season? Heck, in some high school seasons, depending what type of state you live in, they're in the middle of their season. It's gonna be daggone near the playoffs. Can you believe it, Coach?
Yeah, it's it's crazy how things just blow. You and I was talking about the spectacle of Southern playing against LSU and Southern leaving A.W. Mumford Stadium and Pete Richardson Field and going across town and going to Tiger Stadium in Death Valley and playing against LSU, and it was like uh, a Floyd Mayweather Jr. against Conor McGregor type fight, and it was more of a spectacle and a good atmosphere. And it's ironic at this point in the season, we talking about Southern getting ready to have a home game against Alcorn State. It's crazy how the season just blew by. It's ridiculous. It's just boom like that, and before you know it, the season is going to be over. It's crazy how things just kind of blew by just quickly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Basketball season is about to start. So you know what that means. Football season is
Yeah,
the end of football season is looming. It's around the corner. Man, time is surely flying. But that give you my player in the Power Five schools that impressed me. Well, you have to give a shout out to Hendon Hooker, quarterback for Tennessee State. He balled. He managed the game pretty good. Threw for 2 touchdowns. Uh, that running back they got, Jabari Smalls, 5'11", 214 pounds. Uh, Good little mix of power and speed. Uh, Ran for 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. But with that running game going, have a big game. Jabari Small had. Hendon Hooker was able to tear LSU up through the air. So
yeah,
Hendon Hooker definitely did his thing. That's who impressed me.
yeah. He balled out. He balled out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely, definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it. The tennis. A lot of people is saying that if Bryce, like you just said a few minutes ago, if Bryce Young don't play, uh, Alabama's gonna have a hard time against Tennessee State. Go. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. If Bryce, so who you got against Tennessee and Alabama, Coach?
Well, I'm gonna be truthful. I still think Tennessee has a little ways to go. I think if
Okay.
Bryce Young plays and he's 100% healthy, I think Alabama wins. Milrow, even though he's been playing well, you know, having that experience is something that it could kind of help you when your back is against the wall in tight spots. And I hate to keep jumping back to Southern, but that was the only reason why I really was more of a proponent of Glendon Bubba McDaniel starting over Bashawn McCray, because He was a starter last year. He has more experience from a talent standpoint. Maybe McCray is more talented, but that experience it kind of helps you. And considering Bryce Young is a Heisman Trophy winner, I mean Milroe is talented, but you know it's something to say that hey, this guy has won a Heisman Trophy. Milroe's been doing a good job holding it down. Now, don't get me wrong, if Bryce Young doesn't play, I don't think Tennessee blows out Alabama. But not having him
Right.
at quarterback, I think it'll be a close competitive game that Tennessee may be able to overcome Alabama. But if Bryce Young plays and he's 100%, now let me add that caveat in. If he's not
All right.
100%, if he's just there, I think he does Alabama disservice. I think he just might well let Milroe just do what he does, run read option, run around, do whatever. Don't get me wrong, I think he's a competent passer, but kind of in that Bashawn McCray type role, I think he's more of a dynamic athlete, and dynamic athlete to the 10th power compared to somebody like a Bashawn McCray. That kid, they showed him on college game day, at his height when he was running. He was running like 22 miles an hour, so he probably runs in a in a high 4.2s, maybe four high like real low 4.3s. So he's a very fast kid. So if they could get him out space against Tennessee, I still think he's gonna cause problems. But I think having a healthy Bryce Young is gonna really, make or break Alabama in this particular game.
I agree. I agree. If Bryce Young does not play, that's basically going to be the deciding factor how competitive the game is going to be. We all thought, you remember, we thought Arkansas was going to um, make it a competitive game, and then the fourth quarter, Alabama just flexed their muscles as far as the talent they have. But I think Tennessee is a little bit more talented, way more talented than Arkansas. So it's definitely going to be a test. But you know how those Crimson Tide ballers do. You think they have it on the ropes, and then they flex their muscles and let everybody know why they're a powerhouse. Not only in the sec,
And,
but in
and,
college
and bro,
sport
you bring up
football.
a valid point because there's Mac and Bryce Young got hurt, and they gradually came. It real until a real long run. I mean, he had a long run and kind of gave confidence. And it gave him and the rest of the offensive swag, and they started to stick their chests out. And then they just ran away with the rest of the game. But up until that long run, it looked like Arkansas was going to come back and win that game.
Yes, sir, it did. It definitely did. But Alabama recruits the best. They recruits the best,
Yeah.
so they benches be deep. So you have to, once you get a lead, you got to have keep your foot on their neck. And Arkansas didn't do that because they didn't have the dogs, on the bench to do that. Um, but
And,
everybody
and,
is eyeing
and bro,
Tennessee to do that.
and bro, I don't mean to cut you off.
You good?
It's not just the fact that Alabama has depth, but I remember, me and one of my coaching friends, we were talking about this at the same time. Like this one year, like Alabama and LSU, they were like amongst the top. I think they were like maybe 1 and 2, like 1 and 3 or whatever it was in recruiting. Alabama, they kept like somebody like 5-star, 4-star recruits. They didn't just play them right away as like freshmen. Like they kept them on ice. Some of these guys didn't get to play till like their sophomore, junior year. Whereas LSU, some of their 4 and 5-star recruits, they were playing as like freshmen, at latest sophomore. If they didn't start as a sophomore, they transferred to another Power Five and they sat out for a year. They transferred to JC JUCO, and then they transferred to another Power Five. So I don't know what Saban is doing to get those kids to buy into the system, but kind of like Bobby Bowden years of Florida State, because a lot of people don't remember, like like early '90s, college be junior year, but with so much 7-on-7 and the fact that some of these guys play like literally year round, like players won't play as soon as they step foot on campus. They won't play as like true freshmen, which was kind of unheard of in like those early '90s. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even when Eric Randall started at Southern as like a sophomore, that was almost unheard of at one point. But it's to a point today where everybody plays early. But I think the fact that Nick Saban, that he recruits players and he seemed like he can get them to stay and have them buy into playing, like, hey, you're not gonna play till your junior year. And he seemed like he has a plan for him. Whereas, you know, LSU, even when they had Les Miles, Coach O, seemed like they really didn't have a plan for those players. And not to knock Coach O, even though he's not at LSU anymore, it seemed like with the whole Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, seemed like that whole class that went undefeated, won the national championship. I hate to say it, it kind of seemed like things just happened to just come together. I'm not saying it was luck, but it just kind of all came together at the right time. Whereas with Coach Saban, it seemed like he has a plan, and everything just kind of works according to plan.
Yeah, Coach Saban always have those boys. You say what you want about Saban. He you're right as far as correcting me, saying it's not just depth. Um, you have to know what you're doing to coach that talent. So you can have all the depth in the world, but if you don't know it's like you having a gun. If you can have nobody scared of a gun on the table, but if you know how to use that gun, then you're dangerous. So you're definitely right. Um,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so let's move on to this little NFL action that happened. Uh, Matter of fact, we got Thursday night football tomorrow. I forget who's playing. Uh, but let's talk about what happened this past Sunday. So Giants beat Packers 27-22. Giants looking strong, and that's who we play next. My Baltimore Ravens. Patriots blew out Lions 29-0. Chargers outlast Browns, good game 30-28. Jaguars beat Texans 13-6. Falcons lose to Buccaneers 21-15. Steelers get the brakes beat off them 38-3 by the Bills. Surprisingly, Dolphins, but we all know because Tua is out, lost to the Jets and blowout fashion 40-17. Uh, Vikings beat Bears 29-22. Tennessee outlasted the Commanders 21-17. Your Saints beat Seahawks 39-32. That Taysom Hill ain't no joke. 49ers beat
Yeah, he a
Panthers
beast.
37-15. Yes, sir, he is. The Eagles looking impressive, outlasting those pesky Cardinals 20-17. Cowboys outlast the LA Rams 22-10. My Baltimore Ravens outlast the Bengals 19-17. And the Chiefs win a dogfight against the Raiders 30-29. Now, out of all those games that just relayed to you, Coach, what game and what player, or it could be a coach, or who impressed you this week, Coach, in general?
Well, I'm gonna have to hit you with a few, bro. First,
Go ahead. That's why
you
we're doing
know,
this show.
I already know they're gonna. I'm a homer, so I was pleasantly. I ain't gonna say surprised, but I was happy that the Saints was able to finally get over the hump and beat the Seahawks. People don't realize how good at this stage in his career that Geno Smith is. He kind of at this point he reminds me of the Heisman Trophy Geno Smith, like the his first half of his last year at West Virginia. He reminds me of that guy that they thought was going to be like a top 10 caliber pick. Geno Smith is really playing well, for the Saints to really pull that game out of the fire and get a win. And of course, like you said earlier, Taysom Hill, he really was a catalyst. He plays on offense. He plays on special teams. So that pick. So just to kind of get away from my homer pick for a minute, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a huge fan of this team. Maybe because I'm from Louisiana and seems like everyone from this area that's a certain age, like maybe they fall between like the late 40s to maybe mid 60s. So many of them like the Cowgirls. I'm not a Cowgirls fan at all. But the fact that they keep the ball rolling, you got to be impressed with that. And then the last one from that same division for the Giants to go overseas and for them to beat the Packers the way they did, it's going to be interesting to see down the line when the Cowgirls and the Giants actually get to play each other head to head. Who wins that game, and ultimately who's going to win that division. Because the Eagles, they're doing well also. So of that 3-team cluster, who's going to win the NFC East? Is it going to be the Eagles? Is it going to be the Giants? Or is it going to be the Cowgirls? So that's interesting. Of course, my player, like I said, Taysom Hill, Mr. Swiss Army knife, kind of do everything. He played well for my Saints this weekend. I think without him, maybe they don't win that game because Geno Smith, he played well.
I think Geno Smith, this is just his coming out year, in my opinion. Um, he was mad. He was upset when he was drafted. You remember him being upset the year he was drafted because he thought he was
Yeah,
supposed to be uh first round talent, and he was drafted in the second round. Uh, had tough years with the Jets, up and down years. So Hill had to hold the clipboard a couple of years. Now this is coming out year, man. Oh Lord, we have
yeah,
Big
and I don't
Texas
mean to cut you off
AT.
on this.
Give me 1 second. I want you to get a shout out. What's up,
All right.
Picasso, brother? Um, appreciate you for coming in. I am Trill Will. Thank you for stopping by, brother. Big Texas ATS Cletus Smith, part of that TWT clan. Thank you for popping by. And he's saying Cowboys, you know what it is. So we got a Cowboy fan in here, coach.
Okay,
Yeah, but
but
we love you anyway,
but
brother.
yeah,
Even though you're a Cowboy fan.
yeah,
Go ahead, coach.
yeah. Much, but no. But what I was saying about Gino, the only reason why he really fell was the second half of that year because, like I said, at one point I think he had West Virginia like 5-0, and he was like top two in the Heisman race. And then the second half of that year, he just kind of fell by the wayside. And that's why he fell so far in the draft. Because many people was thinking that he really should have been like mid to late first round. So that was the only reason why he fell so far.
I ain't gonna say nothing. What I am gonna say is my show. He was a lot better than a lot of them white quarterbacks that were drafted before him.
Oh, big time, bro, big time.
Just saying. Nobody else gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Well, we know what it is in that.
Yeah,
But talking about the Cowboy, I gotta give it to y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I did not believe in a Cooper Rush. But that Cooper Rush is managing them games. You hear me? I hate to say it, and I don't
yeah.
have beef with the Cowboys, but y'all Cowboys fans make me not like y'all. But you got to hand it to the Cowboys, man. They're staying afloat without their franchise quarterback. You gotta hand it to him, even if you don't want to.
Bro, let us switch roles for a minute. Do you think when Dak gets back healthy, you think it's some type of quarterback controversy, or you think it's just Dak's job again?
Heck no, it's gonna be Dak's job again. Don't get me wrong. Let's say if Dak comes in and he plays like trash, I think that's when they definitely would do the quarterback switch. But if he just does a little bit more than what Cooper Rush is doing, no, no.
So you think it's a monetary thing, right? Since Dak is getting paid so much, right?
Yes. You have to play all the you have to play your prize bull. I don't mean to make the brother sound like an animal, but um, you know what it is. You pay that type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
player that money that you have to have them on the field, and you have to see if they can contribute to your ball club. If not, then you have to think about how to get back your money in the years to follow. But no, I think that with that come back, it's
So
going to be his job again.
so one little follow up question on that. Do you see like Dak more as a playmaker, whereas Cooper Rush is more of a game manager? You see it differently than that.
Yes, definitely. I believe that. Um, do you remember what's his name? I think that I'm gonna take you back. I think Cooper Rush a little bit better than him. But follow me. I believe that Cooper Rush is a Jake Plummer type quarterback. He's not amazing, but he can get the job done. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm not gonna lie. I remember Jake Plummer when he was with the Arizona Cardinals, but I remember him more at Arizona State. And when he was in college, he was a beast. He just wasn't in the NFL. So every time I hear his name pop in my head, I always think of him from college more so than the NFL.
Yeah. Jake Plummer was. I remember a little bit. I remember watching him at the end of his career playing with the Broncos or whatever. But he even managed a couple of good games with the Broncos. Uh, but that's what he reminds me of versus Dak being where he can be a game manager if he wants to, and uh he can pull
A
that ball
playmaker.
down and run down the field. Yes, sir, a playmaker.
Yeah.
So that
Now
gives
you
you
got to
extra.
realize now the Broncos version of Jake Plummer was more of a game manager, but the Arizona State early Arizona Cardinals version of him, he made more plays than him just managing the game. So that's why I said that.
Yeah, I remember Jake Plummer being with the Arizona, but that was just a little bit before my time. I just remember my Baltimore
Yeah, that's why I
Ravens.
said
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say Trent Dilfer, but I'm not gonna do Cooper Rush like that.
No, I ain't gonna lie. Trent Dilfer is the ultimate game manager. You hear me?
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
just turn around, just turn around, just hey, just turn around, hand the ball off. Don't turn it over. Throw it to Brandon Stokely every now and again, and let probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, defense ever. Pretty much, because that Ravens defense. Oh my goodness,
Let me
man.
tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I know Coach 67 Sports TV know a little something about football. Now on that 2000 Baltimore Ravens championship team, only deep threat on that squad was that badass white boy, Brandon Stokely. Go ahead, coach. You made me smile on that one. Yes, sir.
But hey, when you got a beast in the backfield like that to turn around and give the ball to,
Jamal
and then
Lewis,
in
yes,
addition
sir.
to that, yeah, no, but as the kick return to J. Lou, man, that ball was a heck of a kick and punt returner, bro.
And
I
guess what?
mean, there
Who
were
who we
instances
have
where
since? Guess who we had backing
who
up J. Lou? Priest Holmes,
who
undrafted Priest Holmes.
yeah, he did. I remember that. But this was the crazy thing about it. There were times where, from an offensive standpoint, hey, Delph would just hand the ball hand it off 3 times in a row. They'll punt the ball. The opposing offense would get the ball, and they would go 3 and out. They'll punt the ball back, and then they would do the same thing. But the opposing offense was backing up. That's how good of a defense that the Ravens had, and how good J. Lou was as a punt returner, where the the Ravens offense didn't have to do anything, and they were gaining ground in terms of field position, and the opposing offense was losing ground. So that's how good, from a special team standpoint, you had as a returner, and how good your defense was. So that was a heck of a team.
It was, and don't forget Shannon Sharp.
Oh
Don't
yeah, yeah,
forget
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
that
mean,
old
so
veteran tight end.
yeah. I mean, of course, he had learned all his tricks of the trade when he was with the Broncos, and he came over to the Ravens, and he really was he was definitely one of the strong captains on that team.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely was. Um, but like we said before, I don't know if you remember, Coach. You remember you said the Chiefs look scary.
Hmm. I did. I remember that.
They're definitely looking scary. I mean, Oakland had them on the ropes, and then Patrick Mahomes just finding a way with look like you said last a couple of shows ago, without Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
because he has Travis Kelsey, and then he finding a Marquez Valdez Scantling, Miko Hardman, a former Pittsburgh Steeler All Pro Juju Smith Schuster. Then you got
Yeah.
that bowling ball from running back from LSU, Clyde Edwards
Yep.
Hilaire.
Yep. Yep.
Then you have that former Georgia Southern quarterback, Jerick McKinnon, coming at you everywhere from the backfield, from wide receiver, kick return, punt return, everything. So they're definitely looking scary. I'm not saying they can't be beat, but they did a damn good job of um trying to find pieces to replace um Tyreek Hill, in my opinion.
Yeah, bro. Those are big shoes to fill, but they're doing an adequate job. Uh, the Chiefs offense, they kind of remind me of like kind of Golden State Warriors, where they kind of not with Pat Mahomes. He kind of like the Steph Curry for the offense. Well, they're not really out there. They always can find a way to get it done. And like you and I talked about the previous show, bruh, somebody needs to give Priest, uh, not Priest, I mean Eric Bieniemy. Somebody need to give Eric Bieniemy head coach job in the NFL. Man, hey, he deserves one. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna say this. I
Why
hope
can't he
my
get
Ravens gets them.
somebody, anybody?
Somebody.
No, I
You're
mean,
right.
I'll be, I will be content. I will be contented with him going to a team like the Ravens. Please don't send him to one of these bottom feeder teams that he has no chance. I mean, I'm talking about a team that has a solid front office, good general manager. Something to build on, something to work with. That type of team.
Like they did a Romeo Crennel for years at the Browns.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even Bill Belichick couldn't do anything with the Browns. People don't realize that before he was the head coach of the Patriots. He was head coach of the Browns. He didn't do anything.
Wow, wow.
Greatest coach of all time.
That
Greatest
that
coach of all
should
time.
tell
He
you
did nothing for
something.
the Browns. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely everything. I would still the season still kind of young, so everybody is starting to go into conference play. Uh, my Ravens, we beat the Bengals, so I'm glad about that. Um, our secondary wasn't banged up this time, so we was able to compete with those that monster wide receiver core they have. So I'm thankful about that. But we got a tough game against the Giants, though, Coach. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants have it rolling.
Yeah, Barkley is definitely gonna be tough to stop. Uh, and you have to watch Danny Dimes. Make sure you don't roll out the pocket and try to beat you with his legs. But we're gonna move into the topic of the show. Uh, it's
I've been
Coach
waiting for this.
Prime SWAC. Now, those of you don't know, there's YouTube videos all about this. If you don't know what we're talking about, Jackson State beat Alabama State. So at the end of the game, coaches shake hands. Coach Prime, aka Deion Sanders, shook Eddie Eddie Robinson Jr.'s hand, coach of Alabama State Hornets. He tried to go in for a bro hug, and then Coach Robinson Jr. put his hand on Coach Prime's chest to stop him. And then he snatched away from Coach Prime. Then, if you didn't hear the interview when he talks about it, saying that he didn't like how Coach Prime was walking around before the game, he was walking around the stadium being disrespectful, and then he said he didn't come over there and speak to the coach, to him, to his coaching staff. Uh, then he went on to say that he didn't like how basically when Jackson State had the game well at hand, they tried to, run a play to try to score again. And he went into the bro hug. He said, I don't know you like that. Basically, I don't know Coach Prime like that. So you try to be disrespect me and do all that, and then you trying to bro hug me. I, I wasn't going for that. Um, I'm gonna get your input on that first, and I'm gonna go last. Coach, what did you think about that situation that happened between uh, Coach Eddie G. Robinson Jr.? Basically, he is the son of the legendary Grambling State coach, Eddie Robinson. Uh, he also said that Coach Prime is not SWAC. Now, this is coming from the son of a legend in the SWAC. And then, if you didn't see Coach Prime's interview, he said, "If I'm not SWAC, who is SWAC?" So I just want to hear your input on this situation that happened, Coach. I'm itching to hear it. I'm gonna go mute.
All right. I'm gonna break it down. See, from a coach's perspective, and even just from a teacher's perspective, I like to get both sides of a story before I come to my conclusion. So I heard what Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. said first, and then after Coach Prime, he spoke his piece, and I'm not gonna straddle the fence on it. I'm gonna give you like my straight answer, but from Coach Rob's standpoint, I understood what he's saying in terms of the coach's etiquette, in terms of coach protocol, because I had a game today, and the opposing coach, him and I are friends. In fact, I coached with him last year. At my school, I didn't have enough players to have a team, so I'm coaching at another school. So before the game, and of course, just like Coach Prime said, I kind of understood what he was saying in terms of they got there extremely late. So it can kind of go either ways with that. But from an etiquette standpoint, he was sitting on the opposing bench. I went over there and I talked to him, hugged him, shook his hand. We talked a while. We ran it a little bit, whatever, whatever, So that's that aspect of it, first of all. Second of all, in terms of the score, you're talking to somebody that lost a football game 55-0. I've lost a basketball game, 87-15. And the crazy thing about it, the score was more lopsided than that score would indicate, because at one point at the start of the fourth quarter, the score was 87-7. So I put my starters back in, and he took his starters out, like his first two units out. He put his third string in. So we scored like 8 points in like the last 2 minutes or whatever. So in terms of like the game being a rout,
Dang.
the game wasn't that far out. The game wasn't that far out of reach for him to say, well, hey, they tried to run the score up. Because I remember years ago, I don't know if y'all remember legendary Heisman Trophy winner and college coach and NFL coach Steve Spurrier. When Steve Spurrier had the funny gun offense, and he was the head coach of the University of Florida, I think he was beating some team like 63-7 or whatever. And it was like 1 minute left in the game, and he still was throwing the ball. So, Coach Eddie Robinson Jr., I don't agree with hey, the game was well out of reach. He's still trying to roll the score up. He's still throwing it. That didn't fly with me. And based on what he said
Mm.
and what Coach Prime said, I'm gonna just be truthful. I suspect some jealousy in that particular situation. The
Yes.
reason being, the
Yes.
reason
Go
being
ahead.
is because his dad is the most legendary SWAC coach ever, Eddie Robinson Sr. Man, I've seen so many SWAC coaches. I've seen just being at Southern, Gerald Kimball, Marino Chasm, who's the head coach at Southern and Alcorn State. I've seen Doug Williams. I've seen Henry. I've seen so many SWAC coaches over the years. And for you to say Coach Prime isn't SWAC, he might not have played in the SWAC like like Coach Five from Grambling, Doug Williams from Grambling. He might not be synonymous with the SWAC as your dad, who's arguably the greatest SWAC coach of all time, the dean of the SWAC, Pete Richardson, whoever the case may be. But he's brought a spotlight and a shine on the SWAC. No disrespect to the legendary Coach Robinson, because I saw him from the time I was knee high as a duck, and even in his like dying days, in terms of the twilight of his career at the SWAC, him being a head coach of Grambling, because I don't mean to go off too much into a tangent on the side note, but one day you and I were talking, bro, and I was saying how my dad used to record all the Bayou Classic games. So when we went home and watched the game, he called the play and he just kind of drew a play up in the dirt. And my dad said, son, you don't realize what's going on? I'm like, no, I don't understand. He just called in the play. He said, son, they've been running that same play the whole game. So based on the footage we were watching in terms of the Bayou Classic, he was saying that, Coach Rob Sr., he was getting a little C down. And the game had passed him by the way it did Don Shula, uh, some of the other legendary coaches like Tom Landry, used to be the head coach for the Cowboys. Some of those, even Coach P. Richardson, in his dying days at Southern, you could tell the game had kind of passed him by. So the point I'm trying to make is he's the son of the most legendary coach in the SWAC, and Coach Prime is shining the light on the SWAC that not even Coach Rob, especially post integration. has brought to the SWAC. So for you to say that he's not SWAC, all the other stuff, I just kind of felt like it was because of that animosity and that jealousy. Because even had Coach not sought me out before the game today, hey, at the end of the game, we cool, good game, Coach. It wasn't like, we were losing like, 42-0. He's still throwing the ball. I mean, the game wasn't that far to reach. So I felt like it was more jealousy. And for you to see that he's not SWAC, it just kind of put the icing on the cake. It just kind of solidified it. Like, yeah, it's this more personal than anything. This hasn't anything to do because even me, I remember when Coach Prime was playing for the Cowboys and the 49ers. That's that ritual he said yeah before he really even as an NFL player he had that. He would run around the field, the
Yep.
cameras would follow him. So this is something that he's always done. So for you to like take a slight net, I mean, even like I said with the coaching etiquette standpoint, I have had coaches that didn't speak to me or shake my hand during the game, before the game, whatever, whatever. Then after the game, I'll give him a bro hug. We would talk for a few minutes, whatever. Even if some of his players in the line didn't shake hands, I didn't take that personally. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like that's just jealousy, and he used that situation to kind of bring that jealousy to the forefront. You know.
Perfectly said, and we're definitely on the same page. The jealousy was so obvious, and as far as disrespect, he needs to have several seats. There's a video I'm gonna send you where our coach Prime is walking around the stadium. There's players literally walking up to him. I wouldn't say walking up to him, but looking at him saying F Jackson State. Now when he's walking around to their turf, because he's walking around the stadium, there's players act like they're coming up to him and looking at him say, man, why y'all let this N word over here? F this N word. To a grown man, to a coach, being disrespectful. So you talking about disrespect. You can't even teach your players how to be respectful. That's my thing. And it definitely was jealousy. Like you have this legendary lineage of one of the greatest coaches that ever walked the earth, either SWAC or not, ever held a kick clipboard and told
Coach
a young
ever,
man,
greatest
told a
college coach
young man,
ever,
greatest coach ever. Thank you, greatest coach ever,
college coach, greatest
college
college coach
coach
ever.
ever. You just can't be proud of that, and just to see just how like what Coach Prime is doing is basically he's picking up, helping what your daddy did back in the day. He's helping that. And you are too, but instead of just being proud, you let your jealousy seep out because for some odd reason you don't like them or you didn't you don't like the spotlight that Coach Prime put on himself and his son. It's obvious, and I felt like it was. I'm be honest with you, it was disgusting, man.
Bro, I did a video, basically everything you and I are talking about. I just didn't upload it yet. I addressed it, and bro, it's ridiculous. It's like, if anything, Coach Prime. I mean, and another thing that I found distasteful, he just made it seem like yeah, he in the SWAC for now, but hope he don't leave and go to a Power 5, you know, job, take a Power 5 job. And you and I talked about that. It's one thing for you and I to talk about that on this show, but for you to get in a SWAC press conference and making it seem like, yeah, hey, hope you're there next year. Hope you don't run off, take one of these big jobs because I won't kick his behind when we play them next year. Hopefully we play them for their homecoming. It's like, bro, like that's from an etiquette standpoint in terms of professionalism. Like, that doesn't sit well with me.
And that's another reason why I had a problem with why us, especially as black men, why we do that to each other. We go the extra mile to try to humiliate each other, especially in that uh line of business, in that atmosphere. You shouldn't do that. You two black men, head coaches of two legendary programs, HBCU programs, and so you have to conduct yourself in a certain way, even if you're upset. So, but I mean, I believe if it was a white coach, he wouldn't have done that. I believe because it was Coach Prime, he felt bold enough to say, if um I hope he doesn't go with the Power Five next year,
Bro,
just because he
you
was
hit
a
the
black
nail.
man.
You
He
hit the
had
nail on the
balls to
head,
say that. Yes, sir.
bro. Hit the nail on the head. Cause see, I don't know if you feel this way for certain things, but my dad used to tell me this all the time. My mom and I talk about it. If somebody white goes out and does something, oh, that's just a singular individual white person. But many instances when somebody black does something, evidently we the representative for every black person in this country, and it shines a light on all black people negatively. So that's why when you have situations like this, it just kind of, I'm like, I shake my head like, oh, like, don't do that. Because even when Southern played against Jackson State last year, the EW Memphis Stadium, Pete Richardson Field, when they planted the flag at the 50-yard line, I didn't I didn't say, hey, that's distasteful, that's disrespectful, this, that, and the third. A lot of people said that, but I didn't. Because I understand from an emotional standpoint, they really knew they really didn't play well enough to win that game, but they won. But it doesn't shine a light on all HBCUs. And realistically, even Coach Prime talked negatively against that. So for Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. to basically say, this, that, and the third, it's like, bro, I felt like that was so unprofessional. And many people gonna take that narrative and run with it. See how these SWAC coaches act. See, so that's why I'm saying, I don't like that. It makes the SWAC, look bad in my opinion.
Yeah, it does, and I also go as far as I kudos for him for recruiting Demetrius Davis. He is a legendary high school quarterback from North Shore High School by Houston. Kudos, but my brother, you didn't win. You didn't have enough dogs to compete with Jackson State. Well, you competed with them. Your defense was ready, but because of misassignments by that Jackson State offensive line, that caused y'all to hang around more than y'all should. And I would go as far as to say, if that Jackson State line block even the more decent enough, excuse me, to allow Shador Sanders to scan the field, this game would have been closer than it would. I promise you.
And the crazy thing about it, bro, is he said, hey, they was throwing the ball with X amount of time left. He wasn't throwing with his son. He was throwing with the backup quarterback. And, like Coach Prime said, if you still blitzing, dude, we can't run the ball. Y'all loading up the box and y'all sending everybody. So from a strategic standpoint, what he said didn't even make sense. What he said, and it contradicted. He
Yes, it
contradicted
did.
himself. And Prime, hey, like we had to throw the ball because they blitzing and sending everybody. And he was like, he called multiple times. I was leading up to that. So you're not just trying to end a game. You're trying to keep the game going. So, like, one of my, a principal at was that he was the head basketball coach at one point. And the opposing team was first. I was assistant coach for the girls team. She was fussing at our coach. You know, she still had our starters in the game, and we had backups in, and it was upset because we wouldn't back off the press. We were like, hey, if you clear the bench, you put your end of the bench players in, we'll back off the press too, but you still have your starters in, and we got like second and third team girls in the game. So like, why are you complaining? So that's the thing I understand. You know, if you still blitzing, why are you complaining about him throwing the ball? I don't understand it.
I think he just didn't like Coach. Didn't just like you said, he doesn't like Coach Sanders and uh, jealous of him. So
Jealousy.
him
Yeah.
him losing to him in that fashion in his mind, that 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 let the true him, his true feelings come out. And then I loved what Coach Prime said, and that's a gem that's gonna stick with me. One I don't know if you listen to it. Before the ask, are you
I
gonna
saw the
squash
whole
it?
thing.
And he's like, no, because of course he said, it ain't gonna be no beef, but like as far as trying to settle things, he was like, no, because the truth came out when you're mad. So,
Yep.
so
Yep.
now that you
Yep.
let me know how you feel because you mad, I know how to treat you.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. I thought you was gonna go with the motivation when he was like, "Hey, watching my mom work two jobs and you know I had two drug addicted dads." He was like, "That's all the motivation I needed." I thought that's where you were gonna go, but I could see both of them. I could see both. Both narratives. Being motivational.
I hear you, but that just stuck out with me because people will say the most messed up things to you, and it be the truthfully how they feel about you. But on another hand, another day when they feeling
Yeah.
good, they want to slap hands, be kumbaya. Like, no, no, no. What you told me that day when you was mad at me, that's how you really think of me. That's how you feel. So let's just be cordial, and we ain't gonna be do that friendly stuff.
Uh, just to take it a step further, I don't know if you want to address the pregame skirmish between Prairie View and Southern, but just to take it a step further with this Coach Prime situation, do you think Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. would have had that same reaction had they won the game?
No, no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Now I heard about that skirmish. Tell us about it, Coach. What happened?
Man, bro, I'm gonna just be real. You know, today pretty much ended my season where I was, coaching. I'm going back to my school, to coach basketball and for the remainder of the school year in terms of just coaching. And even at one point during the game, a couple of players were upset, this, that, and the third, whatever the case may be. Pre-game skirmishes are no real big thing. I mean, it happens all across sport, all across middle school, high school, college, NFL. To me, it's kind of much to do it about nothing. The only issue I have with it is the fact that it's two SWAC teams, and I think anything negative when it comes to the SWAC, it kind of gets blown out of proportion. I'm gonna give you an example. Like years ago, like my first year when I was at Southern and Prairie View played at Prairie View, right? And Southern band and Prairie View band got to this huge fight, right? And if you're from Baton Rouge, there's two news stations. It's WAFB, which is Channel 9 News, and WBR is Channel 2 News. They got so much coverage of Southern and Prairie View fighting during the game. You know what I'm saying? During the halftime. Because what happened was Southern performed first, and Southern band was coming off the field, and Prairie View's band is was like they're waiting. And instead of Southern band going around a Prairie View band like parting partner and letting them through. Because I don't know if you remember the movie Drumline with Nick Cannon. I don't care if nobody say it.
Yeah.
They stole that narrative from the actual Southern and Prairie View fight that actually happened. The only difference was they made it look like it was, drumline head to head, whereas this was Southern's whole band against Prairie View whole band. And the only difference was it was a long time before Southern let girls march in their band. So at the time, Southern had 100% boys. Even though Prairie View band was like twice as big as Southern band, like 2/3 of Prairie View band was girls. So of course, Southern band, even though they was like probably half the size, they beat up Prairie View's band because Prairie View band it was like 2/3 girls. But the point I'm trying to make is, bro, literally for years, I'm not talking about like 1 or 2, no. I'm talking about like maybe 10 years down the line, maybe 15 years down the line. Every time Southern and Prairie View played, WAFB and WPRZ played Southern and Prairie View band fighting like year after. And I'm like, bro, like it's been so long ago since those two bands fought. Like, why do they need to keep this narrative going? But yet LSU had an issue of something happened to LSU, they sweep it under the rug, and the next year you forget about it. But when it comes to Southern, you keep it going like on years and years down the line. So that's my only concern with this situation here is the fact that like when it's SWAC teams, if it's something negative, they just kind of keep it going to make it like, see, hey, see these Negroes here, you can't take them anywhere. They don't know how to act. Whereas something happened with LSU or some other, whether it's Florida and Florida State or whoever, like those things, they might last a year, and that's the end of it. But when it comes to SWAC schools, you know, it it just kind of it goes on and on. It just to kind of just trying to wrap it up and put a bow on it. Even Southern had like this scandal where they was stealing out of one of the offices or whatever. Like they dragged that narrative on for weeks and weeks and maybe for a couple of years. Whereas they had a similar scandal at LSU, and like after maybe like 1 or 2 times, they just kind of swept it under the rug. So the skirmish was kind of much to do but nothing. But my whole thing is, I hope they don't just kind of keep this narrative going and going when it comes to black people in SWAC schools and that type of thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that stigma is going to be there, because that's what's been placed on black people, especially when we get together for a long time. It just it happens, but that doesn't excuse their actions. You know what I mean? But
Not
um,
at all, but it's just part of the game, though, bro. I mean, like I
yeah,
said, it would have been Florida and Florida State. They might show it maybe college, college scoreboard that night or whatever. But after a while, the news cycle continues and it's by the wayside. But it was two swag schools. Because I mean, even I don't know if you remember when I told you earlier about the Jackson State Southern thing. I mean, they didn't keep it going like they did the Prairie View Southern Band thing. But to me, even in the news cycle, that stayed too long. Like, all right, they planted the flag at midfield. They won the game that they really should have lost. My thing is a Southern fan and as a coach, if y'all hold on to the lead and y'all win the game, y'all don't have to worry about Texas State playing the flag at midfield. But the news cycle just kind of carried on a little bit longer than I thought it should have. And like just keep it moving like you would do LSU or one of these other Power Five schools.
yeah, that's definitely true. But man, that Coach Eddie Robinson and Coach Prime had me hot, man. It really did.
Yeah, it did. In the fact that he's the son of the greatest college football coach ever is like, man, it's not a good look, bro.
Man, that's so ironic, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Well, I hope them brothers. I know what Coach Prime said, but I hope they squash that, or if anything, Coach Robinson be a man and admit what he came out his mouth was uncalled for, was foolishness. But other than that, it is what it is. It happens, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But another successful show. I appreciate you, Coach, for taking. I know you're a busy man, taking your time and joining me again in another week. Shouts out to the mighty LDBC. My apologies. I should have said that in the beginning of the show because without them giving us the courage to do this, we wouldn't be here. But shouts out to the LDBC. Coach, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
All right. First of all, bro, sorry for the constant interruptions. I have a big mouth. I tend to go on and on and on and on. Also, I'm uploading to my channel, Coach 67 Sports TV. I'm uploading a couple videos. Kind of some of the stuff we talked about in terms of the Coach Prime, Eddie Robinson Jr. situation, some upcoming Southern stuff against Alcorn State, so on and so forth. So y'all keep a watch out for that. Follow me at Coach 67 Sports TV here on
Support
YouTube,
the brother.
on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on all social media platforms. And last in closing, appreciate you, bro. It's good to have a tag team partner, somebody that can kind of lead us and keep us going. And salute to the amazing LDBC Lions Den boxing community. Salute to everybody in the chat, everybody that sent super chats, whatever the case may be. Much love, peace, and blessings. And y'all have a blessing, phenomenal rest of y'all week and weekend. And we're going to do it again next week.
Yes, sir. I'm piggyback on. It's okay. You interrupted me. As this football, we love football, so sometimes we have to get our word in. I definitely understand, so I'm not offended at all. Um, but y'all support this brother. He has good content. Uh, he's an actual coach. He's not just one of these jokers on the internet, just speaking a perspective what he thinks. Never, somebody he ain't one of these uh dudes that never played the game before, or he he leads young men and tries to make young men and women and tries to um, make them better and to be a example in their lives. So definitely support this brother. But y'all have a blessed night. Thanks for a few people that came in. We appreciate y'all so much. Y'all couldn't been anywhere else, but y'all was here. Y'all have a blessed night. Be safe.
Peace and blessings, everyone.